Dr. J back here again. So we're going to go through lesson number 4 of this installment series for how to learn how to play the guitar for leading worship. So today we're going to go through the remnant of the chords that we can go through before we move on to strumming. So for today we're going to go through the open F sharp minor, we're going to go through the open G sharp minor, and then we'll go for the A minor, and I think that'll round out all the basics, and then we'll fill out some other blanks later, but those we'll go through. So without further ado, this is the open F sharp minor, and this is an easier variant of the bar F sharp minor, which we went through in the last video. So this one's a little easier. We're going to play your ring finger on the 4th fret of the A string, your pinky on the 4th fret of the D string, and your index finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. And you mute this, the low E with your middle finger, and you play these two open. So it sounds like this. That's an open F sharp minor. Okay. Again, there's a space between these two of 2 frets, and for some people that might be kind of wide, and you're just going to have to get used to it by stretching your fingers. And it takes a little bit of muscle memory and some practice and some callus formation. So let's do that again. Okay, you can play it, but I think it's a little better if you mute the open, the low E. Okay, so let's practice putting our hand on it from an open string position. Do it 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm giving a lot of time so that 5. For those of you who might struggle with it, you can catch up. And one more time. Alright, the G sharp minor is actually the same chord form, except it's just 2 frets up. So instead of here, F sharp minor, G sharp minor is just over here, 2 frets up. So that's the 6th fret of the A string here, and here's the 6th fret of the D string, and the 4th fret of the G string. And the same thing, you have to mute the low E and let these other 2 ring out open. So that's your open G sharp minor chord. Okay, so I think the same chord form, so I'm not sure we need to go through that exercise, but what's important, I think, is to do the exercise to shift between the F sharp minor and the G sharp minor. I think that's important because that's actually commonly done in a bunch of songs that go through that kind of chord progression, so let's practice that. So start from the F sharp minor, and then move your fingers 2 frets up, move it back down, back up, move it down, move it up, and one more set, down, and move it up. Okay, you need to get to a point where you can play it about this fast. About that. If you can get to that speed, then I think you should be good to go to playing a song, because there are chords that chord progressions that call upon that. Like there's this. Like that. So we have that kind of chord percussion. It occurs quite a bit. So you need to kind of get used to that slide. All right. Okay, so that's F sharp minor and that's G sharp minor, and then let's go switch gears to A minor. We've done the A major chord before in the second video, so it's a very similar chord form actually. So if you remember the A, that's the 2nd fret of the D, G, and B strings, and you play them with your middle, ring, and pinky fingers. That's your A major chord, right? A minor is you take your pinky off and replace the finger with your index finger on the 1st fret of the B string, and that's your A minor chord. Okay. The A minor chord is played again with this low E string muted. I mute it with my thumb. And so we should practice doing that from an open string position. Okay. So let's do it 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully by now you'll be a little faster at this. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. So there's your A minor chord. So we've learned the F sharp minor, the G sharp minor, and the A minor chord. Okay. From here, we're going to learn also the A minor 7 chord. So what's the 7? So basically, when we talk about numbers, when you see those kind of things on the chord sheets, and you see E7 or A minor 7, what's the 7? The 7 is the 7th note from the root note. So what does that mean? So when you're looking at the A minor chord, and if you stack it from the bottom note is an A, and if you stack up the notes, the notes go A, C, E. There's the A, there's the C, and then the E is there, and you stack up the chord that way. And if you count up the notes from there, and if you count up whole notes, from A is, let's say, position 1, and then the next note up on the piano keyboard is a B, so that's number 2. The C is next at 3, and that's played, right? So A, C, that's 3. The next note is D, we're not playing that. The E is the next note, that's the 5 position. So if you stack the chord imaginarily, you're looking at the A, C, E, that's the 1, 3, and 5. The first note, which is the root note, the third, and you're playing the 5th. So what's after that? Number 6 is the F, and 7 is G. So if you can play an A minor and then add a G in there somewhere, that makes a 7th chord, is what we call that. And that we do that by removing the ring finger from there and just playing the G string open. Then there's your G, right? So if we hear the difference between the A minor and the A minor 7, it sounds like this. This is A minor and A minor 7. You hear that? A little different. A minor 7. Usually you want to play a A minor 7 when you're trying to lead into another chord. You know, you can hear that the chord wants to take you somewhere, and that's what that 7th note does. So the G in an A minor chord adds this color to the sound that makes you want to lead into something else. And usually that you're leading into, from the A minor 7, that's like a D chord. You hear that? There's a nice resolution there. And that's kind of how it works with the 7th chord. It works also similarly with, let's say, an E7, for example. Here's a E major, and we remember that chord. The E7 is played here similarly by taking your ring finger off, exposing the D string to play an open D. If you can stack an E chord, the E is the 1. And if you go up on the piano scale, the E, F is next, that's 2, we're not playing that. The 3 is being played, that's G sharp. And then the 4 is an A, we're not playing that. The 5th note is a B, and that is played. So we're playing E, G sharp, B, that's an E major chord. There's E, and then there's a B, that's your 5th. That is the G sharp right there in the E major chord. So that's the 1, 3, 5. E, G sharp, B, and then what's after that? 6 is a C. We're not playing that, but a D is the next one. That's number 7. And if you can play a D, and that's the D there, then you have achieved an E7 chord. That's this. An E major chord again is this. E7. And you hear that wants to take you somewhere. You your ears kind of bother you if you just leave it at that. It takes you, I want to take you to the A chord from there. Let's try that again. And you hear there's a nice resolution to that. We call that in music, we call that a cadence. When there's a chord that wants to go somewhere and resolves, this E7 resolves to an A. Okay, and so the sevens actually have a pretty useful purpose in music, generally you want to just follow what's on the chord sheets that you see, but when you see a 7 or E7, A minor 7, now we kind of know what that's trying to achieve, and we know what that note is. So there's A minor 7, and then the E7. Okay. So there we are with that, and then there's the last 7th note, I think. Oh, actually, there's 2 more I think we can do. There's a D7. So we learned the D before. That's this one here, right? Your index finger is on the 2nd of the G, 2nd fret of G, and then your ring finger is on the 3rd fret of the B, and then your middle finger is on the 2nd fret of the high E string. And you're playing these four strings, and then the D7 is played like this. So what's that? That's what did I do? I shifted my fingers so that I shifted my fingers like so. My middle finger has now shifted to the 2nd fret of the G. My index finger has shifted to the 1st fret of the B string. And my ring finger has shifted to the 2nd fret of the high E string. It does require a little bit of finger gymnastics. You see, I'm shifting all 3 fingers. They're all doing something differently. And it takes a little bit of practice, so let's practice that. That's kind of a difficult thing to do for when you're starting off in the guitar. Let's try it, okay? So let's start from the D. And shift to the D7. Let's do it a few more times. Shift it again. Let's do 2 more sets. 1 more set. So the D7 wants to take you to a G. And then there's one final 7 chord that I think we can do right now, and that's the C. So there's your C chord. Let's go back and rehash that. Here's your C. That's your 4th finger. Your ring finger goes on your A string, the 3rd fret, and your middle finger goes on the 2nd fret of the D, and the index finger goes on the 1st fret of the B string. And you're playing these 5 and sparing that one. There's your C. And notice how your pinky is not being used here. The C7 does put that to use. And you're putting the pinky on the 4th fret of the G string. And there that is, and here's your C7. Okay, let's play the C again. And then just add the pinky to where we want it. There's your C7. This again sometimes could be difficult for people because the pinky is kind of a weak finger, right? So we need to practice that and build some muscle strength, or finger strength we call that. So let's do that. Okay, let's practice this shift between C and C7. C7, C, C7, C, C7, and 1 more set. That one takes you to the F chord. Yeah? So these 7s kind of like a leading chords into another chord. All right. I think that's it for today, and keep playing.